is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we're doing the Do I Have That Book challenge. So this is a challenge that I've actually been personally asked to do a couple times now, and I figured it's probably time to do that, especially since I have recently rearranged my books and hopefully know exactly where everything is. I am gonna link the original creator down below in the description in case you guys want to check out her video. Otherwise, let's jump right on into this. The first challenge is, do I have a book with deckled edges? And I am pretty sure I do. I think the ones coming to mind are actually, yes, all of these Iron Fae books by Julie Kagawa all do have deckled edges. Kitty, there is a cat who is trying to rub up against the tripod, but like I was saying, hopefully we can see them. There are deckled edges on all of the Iron Fae books by Julie Kagawa. Second question, do I have a book with 3 or more people on the cover? And again, I want to say I should. And for that one, we do actually have the 10th volume of Kiss Him, Not Me by Junko. This one, as you guys can see, hopefully without too much glare, has 6 people on the cover. It is a shoujo manga, sort of like a reverse harem style, so I mean, this obviously makes a lot of sense. Then we have, do you have a book based on another fictional story? Again, yes. The ones that are coming to mind right now are like the Lunar Chronicles, which I actually got rid of in my unhaul because I'm planning on buying new covers in February, but I'm sure I have something. So we have A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. I am pretty darn sure that this one is based on A Beauty and the Beast, which is obviously another fictional story, like a fairy tale. This one is a more contemporary setting that also has a character with cerebral palsy. I have not read this one yet, but it is very, very high on my list. Do you have a book with a title 10 letters long? We're gonna be doing some counting. For that one, we have No Good Deed by Goldie Moldavsky. 2 + 4 is 6, + 4 is 10. This one has 10 letters. This is a contemporary about teens that go to like a summer camp to like help save the world, and they have to like come up with creative ideas in order to like help recycle and like, you know, make the world a better place. And this one does have 10 letters. Do you have a book with a title that starts and ends with the same letter? With all of these books behind me, I better. We have Obsidio by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. Obviously starts with an O, ends with an O. This is the 3rd book in the Illuminate files. Again, sorry about the cat. Moving stuff around. Hopefully we're still in a good position here. Like I was saying, this is the 3rd book in the Illuminate files. I can't really go into this one too much because of the other 2 books in the series. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars like I did with the whole series for this one. It's really, really good. It has stories that are told through like non-conventional means. It has like emails and security footage that has been typed out for you to read, and the 1st book deals with people having to flee a planet because of an attack there, and then stuff goes wrong on the ships they're on there as well, and it follows 2 main characters. There's 2 different main characters for each book. I just really love the series, and again, O and O. Do you have a Mass Market Paperback book? Yes. Yes, I do. I have multiple shelves of them, so let me just, I guess, grab one off there. So I went with Halfway to the Grave by Janine Frost. This is a book that I absolutely love, but I haven't talked about too much on this channel. Basically, I own all of this series and the spin-off series, but this is a paranormal romance where if you like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you probably should pick this book up. Our main character is a half vampire hunter, and then there is also a love interest eventually that is very, very similar to Spike. He has the British accent, he has that bad boy persona, but that's basically where the similarities start to end. This does take on a life of its own, especially through the subsequent books in the series, but I really, really enjoyed this one, and this is a book that basically made me start picking up certain romance books back in the day, and I don't think I've shown this enough on my channel, and it is, like I said, a Mass Market Paperback. Do you have a book written by an author using a pen name? Let me grab it. So I'm sure I have other ones on these bookcases as well, but I did pick Feed by Mira Grant. Mira Grant is the pen name for Shauna Maguire when she writes usually adult horror. This is a book that I have not read quite yet, because even though it is another Mass Market paperback, it's quite thick, but this is zombie based. This is some sort of scenario where they had ended up like curing cancer and the common cold and all these other viruses, but instead we now have zombies. What's also interesting to me personally is on the back it does say the year was 2014. So this is now probably a speculative book that is now based in our past, at least for when the zombies started. Do you have a book with the character's name in the title? I feel like this is a very common sort of thing that happens in contemporary books, so I could have easily picked a couple from my YA contemporary shelves. So I actually picked up Horimiya by Hiro and Daisuke Hagiwara. This is a manga, and Horimiya is actually both our main characters' names put together. So we have Hori and Miyamura, and that's what the title is. It's both of their names fit together, and I personally think this is another shoujo manga that people should be reading. It is very, very cute. They have different personalities in school when they're with their friends, but they both discover that they have almost opposite personalities outside of school. They become friends. It's really, really adorable, and I really need to catch up on this series. I think I'm a little bit behind. Do you have a book with 2 maps in it? That I am not sure about. I might have to scour some of my fantasy books. Okay, I found one. Rune Marks by Joanne Harris. This one actually has a few maps in there. So we have the 9 Worlds, the Middle Worlds, and Strand Valley. So this is a book that I remember picking up, I want to say maybe high school. I've read this a few times, absolutely love it. This is a book based on Norse mythology. Baby talking. This is a book based on Norse mythology. We have one like main character girl here who is sort of drawn into the Norse mythology world. Like, she's not necessarily in that sort of mythology part of it until she gets drawn into it. But we do have like Odin and Loki and like all the Norse mythology people. And I, again, just really, really enjoyed it. This was supposed to have a sequel, and I think maybe it did not in the United States, so I'm gonna have to look into that because I really, really enjoyed this book and all of the mythology with it. Do you have a book that was turned into a TV show? I think the most obvious one for me right now is Anne of Green Gables. This has been turned into a TV show a couple times. I know that they had an old like mini-series one back in like the 80s or something, because I was born in 1990 and my mom had them on VHS that I remember watching when I was a kid. But also Anne with an E is on Netflix. I know the 3rd season came out and it's like the last season they're planning on doing, and I haven't caught up yet because I haven't found a time to sit my husband down to watch with us. But I've absolutely been loving it, and I have like 3 copies of this book now. This has definitely been turned into a TV show. Do you have a book that was written by someone who was originally famous for something else? They suggest like a celebrity, politician, athlete. I'm gonna go with nonfiction because I'm not entirely too sure if I do have any fiction stuff that was originally written by somebody that was known for something else. But I do have a very small shelf of nonfiction that is almost exclusively autobiographies. I really enjoy nonfiction and personal stories that are told by the person who wrote them and not necessarily by somebody else, like a biography. But so I do have Nerd Duel by Simon Pegg. This one, like I said, is an autobiography, but he also does intersperse it with like fictional sort of stories about himself, I'm pretty sure. It's been years since I read this. He's yelling at the dog for some reason. He might have to join us in a second. Like I said, it's been years since I read this. I don't remember everything, and so I might be due for a reread eventually, but it was an autobiography I really, really enjoyed. Do you have a book with a clock on the cover? I think my little helper is gonna have to help me with this because we're getting a little bit cranky. But you like the camera, don't you? Yeah, you do. Yeah. Let's see if we can find any clocks. Okay, so this took me a really long time to find, and I don't think I have any like traditional clocks on the cover, but I'm gonna go with the Bone Season. If you guys can see here, very, very possibly, it's sort of hard to see. We have like an upside down sort of inverted clock. It starts with 1 here and then goes counterclockwise until you get to 12 at the top. I'm gonna count it because this is what I could find, and to me it looks like it's supposed to be some sort of weird clock. Do you have a poetry book? I know for a fact I do not. The closest thing that I have is going to be The Song of the Sparrow by Lisa Ann Sandell. This is a book told in verse, and I actually think it's the only one of those I have on my shelf as well. But the whole story is told in verse. I think it's going to be the closest I get to poetry. This is a sort of retelling about Elaine from like the mythology of Camelot, and I've had this since the end of high school. Yeah, probably the end of high school. It was published in 2007, and that would have been like junior or senior year, just depending on when it was published. I've read this a few times, really, really enjoy it, but it's the only book I have of poetry or verse that I know of on my shelves. Do you have a book with an award stamp on it? I know I used to. I got rid of one recently. Hopefully. I found one. My biggest problem with these award stamps sometimes is that I pick up a lot of books a little too early for them, and so I was really hoping that some of my middle grade had some because I got them in elementary, middle school-ish age, and some of them are quite old. And so I have my copy of Island of the Blue Dolphins from like 5th or 6th grade, and it does have a very, very tiny Newbery Award-winning medal on there. It has come a long way. This is not the design they have anymore for it, but I have one. The next question, do you have a book written by an author with the same initials as you? I am almost exclusively sure that I do not. My initials are CZ, and all the Z's I have on my shelves are not with a C in the first name. So like I know for a fact I have Mariana Zapata, that's an MZ. I have Amy Jong, which is an AZ. I have Amelie Wen Zhao, which is another AZ. Even though that's the exact same last name, I have not the same first initial. I have Gabrielle Zevin, which is GZ. So I think what I'm gonna have to do for this one is maybe do my maiden name, which my initials would be CG. That might be easier. Looking like nothing for that either. I don't have like anything with CG or CZ. So for this one, I have lost this part of the challenge. Let's continue. Do you have a book of short stories? I actually have a few different books of short stories, all by Stephen King. This is just the easiest one to get to. This is Everything's Eventual, and it has 14 dark tales in it, apparently. I read this in high school, maybe. It's been a while. I actually don't even think I've read every single short story collection from him on my shelves, but I do own them. Do you have a book that is between 500 and 510 pages long? Hopefully. So I have the paperback version of Clockwork Prince by Cassandra Clare. According to the page numbers down here at the bottom of the story, it ends on page 500, and then there's like a short story or something in the back. I'm gonna count this as between 500 and 510 pages. Do you have a book that was turned into a movie? Again, another yes. I'm gonna make this very easy on myself and say Lord of the Rings. Specifically, I guess for this book, The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is my original cover book from 8th grade, and it has, you know, the movie cover, because back then I wasn't super picky about my covers. I've obviously read it quite a few times, and yes, obviously been made into a movie. I read the books because I watched the first movie and then needed to know what happened before the next movies came out. So I mean, hey, do you have a graphic novel? Yes, I do. I have tons of comic bind-ups, but I actually have graphic novels as well. And for this one, I'm going with my most recent actual graphic novel purchase, and this was Bloom by Kevin Panetta. This is an LGBTQ romance, cute, bakery sort of thing. I really enjoyed it, and while it is sort of thick, this is a graphic novel. It went by really quickly, And yes, I love graphic novels. They are great. And then we're down to the last question. Do you have a book written by 2 or more authors? Again, yes, I do. I thought going for another Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff book was a little bit too easy, so instead we have Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. This is a book that I've actually owned for a few years, and when they made the TV show this last year, I was super on board, because this is a really hilarious fantasy-ish book. I don't know, it's just so hard to describe it exactly, but this is a really good one. And if you watch the TV show, I do think you should pick up the book because they complement each other so well. It was so well done. And this obviously has 2 authors. I don't know if I can go into it any more than that. This is just a super good book about an angel and a demon and like how they sort of come together to try to stop the apocalypse. It's great. I loved it. I love the show. And that is the last question for this challenge. I hope you guys liked this video. This was very interesting because I know I had watched a couple people do this video last year, I think sometime, and I wasn't too sure if I was gonna do it, so I had completely forgotten all of the questions by the time I decided to film this. So if you guys did like it, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you would like to see other videos. I do have videos up on Mondays and Thursdays, so I will see you then. Bye.